Folks, welcome back to the Rec Room, episode 32 with Brian Rector. And just one day ago, we were in Provo, Utah. We were doing a filming session with Carter Cutting, who just broke the 4-minute mile, the fifth person to ever do it at LaVell Edwards Stadium, BYU. That was a really special thing. And I so appreciate Carter for giving me the time of day to make that happen. I believe that that is single-handedly the best filming location I may ever have. Right in the shadow of the mountains there in Provo, just beneath that football stadium, right on the track. It was phenomenal. And now I'm back home. Redmond, Oregon is the scene today. We got the Brian Rector shrine over there, Wilsonville High School, calling some basketball, I believe. And also, we have Coach Dan Meske from the University of Louisville, the Cardinals. Coach, how are you doing? It's great to see you.
I'm great. I just worked out and then I heard that 4-minute mile and I don't feel as accomplished anymore. That's insane. Man, and that's who did that? Who did a 4-minute mile? Because like everybody does it now.
That's right. His name is Carter Cutting. He grew up with me in Oregon, and then
Oh my God.
late in high school moved to Corner Canyon in Draper, Utah, and then big time recruit. His final four was Oregon, Gonzaga, Notre Dame, and
Oh
BYU.
yeah.
Picked BYU, and then now we're here. And he just finished eighth in the Big 12 in the 1500.
Eighth in the Big 12. That's what like the 4-minute mile, there's that great documentary about like the first time it got broken. And if I was smarter, I'd be able to name there's this thing called the something something effect where
Hmm.
the 4-minute mile was an example of this where no one could do it. And then all of a sudden somebody did it. And within that first calendar year, like 10 more people did it. And so now it was kind of like no one thought it was impossible. And then once somebody showed it was possible, all the floodgates opened. I forget what the name of that is. There's a name for whatever that is, but that's crazy that he got eighth in the Big 12, but runs under a 4-minute mile. That's insane. Good
Yeah,
for him.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't believe it. His 1500 time when he got eighth was 342, and a kid ran 337, and there were seven
God.
spots between that. It was like, wow,
Wow.
like come on. But
Crazy.
yeah, yeah, Coach, thank you for joining me. Now,
Thanks
there's
for having me.
absolutely. There's been so much change that has been undergoing in the sport of volleyball. And I wanted to tell you a couple things. One, I've been tuned into your podcast because recently my alma mater, which that's a shock that it's been a couple weeks now, I can say that. But Coach Kelsey was on your podcast, Out of System, and I
Out of
appreciate,
rotation. Out of rotation.
dang it, my fault, my
I
fault.
get that all the time, man. There's only so many volleyball terms, you know?
That's right.
So
That's right. That's right. That's right. Thank you. Out of rotation. I wanted to first start with what was your inspiration for beginning your podcast, and what has it been like to connect with all of these giants in the game?
yeah, it's a great question. And, credit to you. We were talking before we came on of how cool it is, the content you're putting out. And it's not easy. I think the first one or two are the hardest because you just don't know what it is and
Sure.
whatever else. But for me, the origin of kind of starting my podcast was, I'm 40 right now and I started it 2 years ago. So I was encroaching on 40 and,
Mm.
midlife crisis, some people buy like a convertible or do whatever. And for me, I was just like, I love learning new things and I loved podcasts. I love
Mm.
true crime podcasts, sports podcasts, mindset, anything. I
Mhm.
just love that kind of medium to learn and to just kind of almost entertainment too. So I had listened to so many and just kind of, you listen to them, you kind of picture yourself on one or you picture yourself running one or whatever it might be. And I said, I'm just going to do it. And the first step, I learned this kind of young in my coaching career when we would set goals with players. I think the first step is you have to tell somebody you're going to do it. Not tell somebody, oh, I think I might. You have to tell somebody, hey, I'm going to do this.
Mm.
And then you have like this verbal contract with them where it's like, man, if I don't do this, I'm like a liar to them, or my word isn't worth anything. So I remember telling my neighbors, I'm going to start a podcast. And then it was like, after a couple of weeks, I was like, this is gonna be hard. But I was like, I told these people I'm gonna do it, so I have to do it. So
Yeah.
that was a couple of years ago. I saw you're in your 30s. I'm in my 20s with episodes. It's hard. I think AI has helped a lot. I use a
Yeah.
platform called Riverside to help me out with some of the cutting up and all of
Mm.
that because I do it all on my own. It's very much just a hobby.
Sure.
It's not anything to make money or do anything other than just kind of explore this kind of medium. But I've loved it. It's been really, really fun. I've learned so much along the way. And then, what tied us together was, when you talk about Kristen Kelsey, she's somebody I've known. I recruited her way back when, and then we haven't maybe stayed as much in contact. And it's like
Mm.
she's a brand new head coach. I'm a new head coach. This is probably a conversation we might have someday. So I thought, like, why not just start recording these conversations? Because I think there's people who'd get value. So it's been a really good kind of balance between that of like I normally would have these conversations, and then I've kind of come to find out there's a lot of people that would be interested in listening and maybe learning from some of those conversations too. So I love it. It's been really, really fun.
Most certainly, most certainly. And I think one of the things that's so important that you mentioned is how there is interest out there. I'll tell you, being forthright, I am one of them. I'm very interested to hear about what's
Let's
going
go.
on within the sport and within the mind of somebody, as you said, who is a new head coach. That's exciting for me. Back to what my point was about making or having so much change in the sport of volleyball. Now, Danny goes from Louisville to Nebraska, which was just, I think, an earth-shattering move. One of my, and the way it happened with John Cook retiring and moving forward. But the more I think we unearthed that, it was maybe premeditated more than it looked at the beginning. Uh, One of my good friends from Michigan State, his name is Clark Jocelyn. He's an assistant at Central Michigan. When I told him, I broke the news to him, I guess, in my journalistic way that John Cook was retiring. When that happened, like, I want to know from your perspective, what were some of the thoughts immediately, and how much kind of preparation time did you have to assume this new role after, what was it, 9 years as assistant at Louisville?
Yeah, this will be my ninth season. So it was eight
Okay.
years going
Okay.
into nine. And again, it almost ties back to the podcast and all the stuff I've been able to do outside of the sport. The last couple of years with Danny at the helm here, I had done the job I did here as an assistant while I was at Nebraska with Danny, and then also while I was here. That was one of
Sure.
the reasons the cohesion works so well here. So the last couple of years, I had a lot more time for creative thinking and
Mm,
taking on new projects and things like that. And so instead of grabbing new hobbies and golfing more or doing whatever, I decided to do podcasts and all that
sure.
because I just, again, the wheels were turning within our program and we were very, very good at what we were doing. And it felt like change was inevitable, like it might be coming. Clearly Danny's from Nebraska. John was going
Mhm.
to retire at some point. There was really nobody else you would think of as more deserving of that job. I thought Danny was the top head coach in the country at the time. And obviously everything went that way. But as far as the preparation goes, since I know this will be on YouTube as well, I'll use this kind of visually. So if you look at like left to right, we'll just kind of do the hierarchy of knowledge within what happened with Danny. It's like,
Sure.
John would be over here. And John told the administration at Nebraska that he's going to leave. So that's all happening here. And then once that happens, the administration has to decide who we're going to hire. We're going to hire Danny. So who's over here. So all that happens. Then it gets to Danny. Well, Danny doesn't tell me right away because I'm not the one who hired her. She tells our administration. And
Mm,
then so they have to decide, okay, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden, way probably off your screen is where I was in that whole thing because again, there was just so many different factors at play that didn't that I wasn't really connected to other than Danny. So all those people kind of aligning with their communication and just making everything so clear and concise and consistent. I think I just felt so grateful that it happened that way because as we saw with other coaching hires, it could just be, hey, the head coach leaves. I'm out. See ya. All right, administration, figure out what you're going to do. And then and then that the domino effect of how many people that affects,
mm,
you don't really see the end of that for a really long time. So for Nebraska, their administration to get on board with Louisville's administration, for them to kind of sync up of how this was going to work because everybody felt so comfortable in the head coach they were going to have and the direction they were going. Again, I still look at it and I'm just like, man, I am so grateful for the way that that worked out because a lot of it was really just karma. It wasn't anything that like, oh, because I did this a year ago, this played out really well for me. It was completely out of my control. And
mm.
a lot of things really went our way from a Louisville standpoint and the fact that we could keep our momentum and keep our trajectory. So I was really grateful with that. But timeline wise, I mean, Danny, let's say she left on like a Wednesday. I mean, I heard for sure that that was happening, Tuesday night. It was
Mm,
very, very fast how it all
mm.
worked. But I think there was some stuff behind the scenes that obviously expedited how fast everything went once it was official.
Sure,
Crazy
sure.
time though. I don't think there'll ever be anything like it in any other sport because the connection Danny and I had with Nebraska, the
Yes.
connection, it's just there were so many unique things about it. I just don't think we certainly won't see that again in volleyball, at least for, a long, long time. It was very unique. I was very,
Mm.
very grateful for the part I played in it.
Most certainly. Most certainly. And I think as we talk about Nebraska and Louisville over the last decade, I mean, we're looking at two of the premier programs, two of the absolute top in the sport. And so it's fascinating that this transition happens among both of them. And just the sharing in that, as you said, I hadn't thought about it that way. So I love that. The other head coaching hire and change that I was watching very closely because A, it's my home state, the Oregon Ducks. And B, it's somebody who I've come to know and admire because one of my good friends from high school is one of Oregon's DSs, one of their passers, Daley McClellan. Um, I've gotten to know Coach Ulmer. And so I had him on the show in March, and we were talking about his move to Kansas. I love what is happening in the sport right now, where there's more of this equilibrium going around. There's more of this transitioning going around, and it's been fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to, I'd have to watch that podcast about his move and the reasons behind that. But I do think volleyball in particular, you look at, Oregon in the Big Ten and coming off of Elite Eight and all the things that they've done. And then that head coach goes to another program that basically makes a statement that's like, hey, we're here to play. Like we're serious about volleyball. And then obviously, Louisville and Nebraska both being in the Final Four, and one
Right.
coach going to another, and all those different things. Volleyball hasn't had that for a really long time. The premier coaches in our sport have typically just stayed at one school and never left.
Mm,
And if I look at like our counterpart, like women's hoops, Gino did that at UConn. He's been there forever. But then I look at like Va Tech was killing it 2 years ago, and then their coach goes to Kentucky, and
yeah.
Kentucky, dumps all this support into their program and says, "Hey, we want to do what you did at Virginia Tech."
Mm,
And I think that's good for the sport because then it puts the feet to the fire of both programs to say, okay, do we want to sustain where we're at? We just lost our coach. We're going to have to really invest some resources to stay where we were at. But then there's this new school that's like, hey, we're investing the resources to get what just happened there. And it's like a high tide rises all boats. So I'm all for it. I think it's great when administrations show that they're really, really serious about volleyball. That's only going to be good for our sport. So,
mm.
and Matt, I'm a big fan of Matt's as well. We've had some good matches back and forth. I've never gone against him as a head coach, so that's coming someday. Um, and I'm looking forward to that. But as an assistant, and he's been ahead for a really long time. We've had a lot of matches, and just a really good dude.
Sure, I remember, I think, what was it, the 2022 regional final where you two were competing?
Yeah, 2022 regional final that was in Louisville. They
Sure.
had Brooke Nunneveller who's playing
Hmm.
for the Supernovas, and it's like all everything. They have a current player who's still playing right now that was a freshman for them, and
Mm,
they were loaded. They were really good. Pukas, I think Hannah Pukas
right.
was her name, was the setter there. She was
Yes.
unreal, and we came out in the first set. And gosh, I think they missed seven serves. So it's like and they completely outplayed us in every facet of the game, but we won that set by 2 points. And I'm pretty sure they missed six or seven serves. And we felt like the crowd won us that one. Like we had the
Mm,
home court advantage. They missed some serves. We're like, thank
sure.
God. And then in the second set, they absolutely rolled us. Like we were nowhere near them. Third set, I think they won as well. And then when we get to the fourth, we had our backs against the wall. They had a match point swing, which was, a millimeter away from touching one of our fingers, ends up going our way. And I've told this story before too, but I thought it was so funny. Like Matt during that match is sitting Indian style at their timeouts. And it was just like so unique at the time. But if you know Matt, he's a really tall dude.
Right.
And so, like, if he goes to a knee, he's still taller than the rest of the bench, obviously. And so he's sitting Indian style while we're running our huddles. And it's like you almost can't help but be distracted from them. And then we shared a really cool moment that I'll have to ask him about this because I've told the story a couple times. And the way I remember it is it was in that fourth set. Me and him kind of locked eyes because he's running the offense for Oregon and I'm running the defense for Louisville. So we're both kind of up pretty active in the moment. And
Mm.
I look over and he's looking at me and like he like just mouths the words like, man, this is really fun. And I was like, this is really fun. Like this is a really cool experience for everybody. Like the crowd's going nuts, the players are playing great. Whichever way that match is going to go, it was just like this is a cool moment. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt's.
Certainly, certainly. And I think, it's one of those things where it harkens back to the small nature of the volleyball community. Even though the thing is expanding, the more I dive into it, my last year at Michigan State, I guess I would call myself the lead analyst for Michigan State volleyball with Big Ten Plus. And what I discovered with each of these coaching conversations is that somebody knows somebody. And
Oh
I just
yeah.
thought that was really cool. That's something that spoke to me. But Coach, I want to talk about your Cardinals because this is a program that has made Final Fours 2022, 2024, risen to great heights, and become, with the KFC Yum Center, a little bit of a beacon in that way, the facilities aspect as well. I wanted to ask you, like, from your perspective, now being there for 9 years, what enables Louisville to be great? And what are some of the factors that play into creating this and cultivating this culture of winning?
It's a great question. So I'll start with the facilities you mentioned. I think that's one thing we're really unique in the fact that the KFC Yum Center is downtown. That's our big arena, seats over 20,000 people. And we're able to get, 12, 15,000 people in that arena for some marquee matches. But then
Sure.
we've also got a arena on campus that seats about 1,100,
Okay.
which I love. It's the L&N Federal Credit Union Arena. We play probably maybe in any given season, a third to two-thirds of our home matches in that arena.
Hmm.
And so we have kind of the best of both worlds. So we have our own arena on campus where it's very, very intimate. It's a great setting for volleyball. Anybody who comes and sees a match there is immediately hooked as a fan because you're basically like in the match. Then we've
Sure.
got the Yum Center, which is more of the spectacle, where it's, hey, we can pack that thing, we can have huge crowds, looks great on TV. So both of those, I think, are really unique for a volleyball program to have access to both.
Hmm.
I think it really helps our program. But as far as how we've been able to just win and sustain, being a top program, it's really, really hard. We've talked about this a few times of like, it's almost harder to sustain being a top program than it is to go become one. Because if you're just a flash in the pan and you have some great seniors and you have a great year, that's all well and good. And that's hard to do in its own right. But then after the reset, that's the hardest part because what you end up doing is you start attracting a lot of recruits that are going to that successful program. And where you run into issues is if you don't identify your recruits properly and you get these people that committing to Louisville is the end goal. That's the prize. That's the finish line. You don't win with people like that. You win with people that see Louisville and see the experience here as a means to an end of I want to play pro, I want to play on the national team, I want to improve, I want to grow my love for the game. There's got to be something more once you get there. And so for us, a lot of times there's a learning curve of like, hey, now that you're at Louisville, you've never beaten this team we're about to play before. But if this team beats you, they are going to basically almost rush the floor. They're going to dogpile. It's going to be a huge moment for them because of what Louisville means, not because of anything you've done so far, but because of what Louisville's done in the past historically. So that's always kind of a learning curve for our newer players,
Hmm.
but it also helps you improve at a really fast rate because there are no easy matches. Everybody's trying to get you. So that part's been really cool. But to your original question of how we've been able to sustain, it's all about culture. You got to bring in the right people. You got to really look forward to coaching and being around the people that you're around every day. And if you don't identify that correctly in the recruiting process, I used to say recruiting is like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you look real crummy, real fast. But now I have a beard, so I don't say that as much. But you have to be on it every single day. You have to be thinking about
Absolutely, absolutely. And that analogy got me. I need to recover here. That was funny.
it.
Uh, Coach, what are some of the pillars, to your point, about establishing culture? What are the important values and virtues that the Cardinals hold?
As I've gone in coaching, so my first coaching job was at Augustana in Sioux Falls. It was a Division II, and I remember applying for that job, and I made a pyramid, almost like John Wooden's pyramid, famous
Sure,
men's basketball coach at UCLA.
absolutely.
And so I was like, well, I need to organize my thoughts, I need to organize my philosophy and all of that. And it did help me kind of identify things that were important to me. And the
Hmm.
top of that pyramid was confidence. I remember that. But as I've gone further and further in the sport and further as a coach and a leader and whatever else, I've gotten away from really having pillars or things like that. Like, yeah, you have to know who you are. But again, getting away from that, it's gotten me more into what would, if I were to make a pillar, it would be the word authentic.
Hmm.
Just really being true to who you are, I think is the most important thing. So, and I've always thought too, like putting the word authentic on the wall as a pillar is like the least authentic thing you can do. Like that's not very authentic of like, hey, we need to like strive to, like
Sure.
that needs to be like the price of admission is being authentic, not
Hmm.
something you're striving for. I'm
Hmm.
striving to be authentic. If you're striving to be authentic, you're inauthentic. So
You're right.
it's kind of the chicken or the egg, but I think that
Hmm.
that's a core value of our program is just really being true to who we are and then being really consistent. For coaches in particular, if we can model consistency, because consistency is like everything you've done before you showed up. Like if you're sleeping well, if you're taking care of your nutrition, your relationships are, where they need to be and you're growing in those, then when you show up, you can be really consistent in who you are. When those aren't in check, you get this really inconsistent thing 2 hours a day in front of the group. So I think those are two really important things for me is consistency and being really authentic.
Do you think, or let me phrase it this way. Is there a recent example that you can think of an athlete for you who has demonstrated this quality of authenticity? And what would that look like from their perspective inside your gym?
That's a great question. So, there's way more recent examples of this, but the one that comes to mind is Anna Stevenson Hall is a pretty unique athlete for us who has been, she was an alternate for the national team. She was in Paris
Mm,
for the last Olympics.
mhm.
Been playing pro for a number of years, but when you talk about authenticity, like she always asked the best questions because she wasn't afraid to ask any questions. So she would ask inappropriate questions. Like she would ask you like, "Hey, how much do you make?" or stuff like that. Like stuff you
Sure.
would never ask people.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
just didn't care. She was just authentically herself. And she was just like, "I'm curious about this. I'm going to ask the question."
Mm,
And it really created like she wasn't really afraid of what line she might be crossing or, oh, I shouldn't. Because again, that's not very authentic to worry about like, ooh, can I do this? Like all of a sudden it's just like I'm not able to just be myself. So I think she really ushered in an era for us where you could truly be yourself. You could ask hard questions. You could ask for clarity if those questions, the answers didn't make sense. And she's just somebody that there were so many different times that she would ask questions that were just like so off the wall. And it was just like, hey, but you're curious and you want to learn, and this is important to you. So she's somebody that really comes to mind when you talk about being authentic.
surely, surely, surely. So, Coach, I understand that you're going out to play golf here in a little while. I wanted to ask you, being that I'm a golfer myself, looking to get back out to it shortly, in short order, as it clears up. It's still too cloudy today, but um, for you, what does something like the game of golf do for being able to escape, to be able to move away from the
This
court?
will be the only podcast I talk about golf because I'm like golf curious right now. Like I don't even
Okay,
know if I like it. It's just like
sure.
guys my age do it, and that's how we bond. And so I'm like I have to like kind of try. So again, I don't have a ton of hobbies. I'm exploring golf as a hobby. Like pickleball is the hot thing right now, and I
Sure.
play it. And afterwards, it'd be like I don't even know if I like this. Like I don't even know. So I'm not sure if I like golf, but I'm going out there. I have clubs. I haven't invested a ton into it. A lot of mine are hand-me-downs, which I'm proud
Mhm.
of. But I don't know. Like I said, my hobbies, I've got three kids who watching them grow up is my favorite hobby. Like the sports they explore and the things they do is really fun. The
Mm,
podcast, like I like learning about the podcast and learning how to put out content and learning about that a lot more than I like most of the hobbies I have right now. So I don't know if I get better at golf. Like I'm really, really competitive
sure.
and all of my friends are better than me at golf and it bugs me to no end. So that's why I'm like I'm not sure because like if I'm like I don't like it, then I have this out for not being as good as I want to be.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if I have the time to invest to like really get good and truly care about golf. If I don't care, it's okay to be bad. If I care, it's not okay to be bad. So get back to me on golf in a year or two and see if I'm still playing.
Okay, okay, absolutely. So I think the way you ended that was fascinating, and this is the last place I want to go, is in a year or two, what are some of the things that you're hoping to see from the Cardinals, and what do you hope that it looks like as a program that may be different, may be similar from what we've known for the last decade?
So with Louisville, I've always thought we're a really good program at creating superstars. Claire Chaussee is somebody who comes to mind, for example. She's somebody who's from Wisconsin. And at the time when she came here, she was from just outside of Madison. Wisconsin was her dream school. And Wisconsin was a premier program when she was getting recruited. And I don't even know if they recruited her.
Mm,
And so she comes to Louisville and she becomes the first team All-American. It becomes like the one that got away. But they probably didn't even know who she was, to be honest. And for Louisville, we're really proud when we have somebody that comes into our program, stays for 4 or 5 years, and becomes a superstar.
mm,
And it's great to recruit superstars on the front end of like these, really household names that are top recruits and all that. But we don't want that to be the end of the road. We want them to become, a better player and a better version of themselves while they're here. So when you talk about where we're at in a year or two, I'd love to get a question about an athlete maybe you haven't even heard of at this point. And you're like, man, like tell me about, so and so. And really, right now, you don't even know who that is because she's
mm.
been this player that's really emerged and become a top player within her position. And I think there's so many different people within our program who that could be. So I'm really excited to find out who that's going to be because I think we just create an environment where we continue to create and develop superstars. And I'm really, really proud of that.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And how would you feel about doing a rapid fire segment on the Rec Room right here?
Fire away, man. I love it. Let's do
So this is Rolling Loud on the Rec Room, brought to you by the Brian Rector Shrine over here, we'll say, because we got to be,
it.
impromptu with it. Coach, actually, I wanted to tell you this. The first time that I brought out this segment, the Rolling Loud, I was on the episode with Cami Miner of Stanford. And
Okay.
I was thinking
Great
about,
setter.
that's right. I was thinking about doing a rapid fire segment, and I'm sitting there and I go, I got it. It'll be Rolling Loud on the Rec Room. So here we are, episode
Love
32,
it.
head coach Dan Meske of Louisville, and we got Rolling Loud for you right here. So, coach, if you could coach a volleyball match anywhere at any location in the world, where would it be?
If I could control the wind, I would coach it on an aircraft carrier because they do
Oh
that with men's
my.
basketball. I think that
Yes.
would be a really, really cool thing. I don't know if volleyball could ever do it because of the wind, but they played hoops there, so who knows?
Wow. That was a great answer. Oh my God. I had a few weeks ago, I had somebody say play volleyball on top of Everest, and I was like, huh? In
Good
oxygen?
luck with that.
That's crazy. Coach, what are three words to describe your life at current right now?
Oh wow. Fun. It's really, really fun. God, that covers everything, man. Like when I think about my life at current, it's like, I'm constantly learning. So
Sure.
fun, learning. And God, pretty consistent. I'm a very consistent person of like I like my routines and things like that. So fun, learning, and consistent.
Mm, absolutely. If you're, or I'll say it like this, in order for your 2025 to be complete, what needs to happen?
I just got to be excited about what I'm going to do every
Mm,
day. I got to be excited driving to work. And again, exciting is the word that comes to mind where I'm just excited for what I'm about to do each day.
sure. And then, Coach, lastly, and thank you again for your time, is there anybody that you would like to shout out or acknowledge as a part of what's been happening at Louisville, what's been happening in life?
There's a million people, and I could take up so much, but the number one would be my wife. My wife is like she's the perfect partner for me, and she makes me such a better coach. Like I look at the moment we met and the person I became and the coach I became, and
Mm,
she's such a stud. And when I talk about being excited, like I'm always just so excited to like come home to her and hang out with her. And she's working out right now, and we're gonna grab a quick bite before I go golfing. And I'm like, that's like the highlight of my day. So
awesome.
gotta shout out my wife.
Awesome. Well, Coach Meske, I appreciate it so much. It's been a joy to connect with you and talk with you, and I just thank you all out there for paying attention a little bit to the Rec Room and seeing what we got going on. It's crazy that it's been 32 episodes. It's been one per week since January 7th. We're continuing to move. So really appreciate the journey and excited to see where it goes over the summer. And Coach, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you for having me and congrats on the podcast. We were talking before we started. It's not easy to stay the consistency. One a week since January is freaking awesome. So credit to you. Good job by you. I
Thank you.
appreciate the time and go Cards.
That's right.